Okay, here we are. We are going to sew the bead block. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our all of our fabrics are large enough for our block. So you can see that B1 is this triangle and this white piece is totally sufficient. Same thing with the B3 block and the B2. So that green piece definitely covers a 1/4 inch on all sides, so that we know all of our pieces are large enough. We're going to start with B1, and just like before, we are going to glue this piece down real quick. Just like that. And there. Now we have B1. So we are going to use a piece of cardstock, and we are going to fold our paper directly on that line between B1 and B2. So here we go. And then now I have my 1/4 ruler, and I'm going to show you how nicely that this just, it has that lip right on the edge, and oops, it has the lip right on the edge, and you can see how nicely that is just going to line up with the edge of the fabric. And then you can just use your rotary cutter and trim away, and it will give you that exact, look at that, perfect, that exact seam allowance that we're looking for. So now I'm going to take my my green piece, which is our B2, and I'm going to place it right underneath there so that it covers on all sides. So I'm going to make sure that that covers on absolutely all the sides, and it sticks out this way and again this way. And now I'm going to take this over to my machine and stitch all the way before my dark line that I'm trying to stitch on, the whole seam allowance here. So I'm going to stitch the seam allowance, all that whole black line, all the way down, staying on the black line, all the way to the end of the paper there. So this is where you can see how it is the whole line. So not just the printed line, you're also going to include the line before and after in the seam allowance. So now I can fold my paper back up, use my handy dandy 1/4 ruler, and it will sit really nicely. So, you know, regular rulers, when you have them there, they will slide, you know, and you'll have to really try to line it up. And it's a white line, so this makes it really difficult to line up with white paper. So the 1/4 ruler is definitely super great for paper piecing. I use it all the time. So then you have that perfect seam allowance there. And now I can open both my paper side and my fabric side. And now I need to press this with an iron. So I'm going to take that over to the iron right here real quick. And I use the Alysso mini iron because it is the hottest iron. Okay, here we go. Now my piece is nicely pressed. So now I'm going to move over to the line between B1 and B3. So I'm going to use my cardstock, or whatever you have that's a little bit thicker than paper. You place it directly on the line, and then you might have to rip the paper because we stitched, well, you will have to rip the paper, not might, because we stitched over it, but that's okay. I'm going to rip it there. That way it will fold on that line. Now that we have that folded, you can use your 1/4 ruler, ta-da, and trim your seam allowance. So there we go. And now we can very easily see where we need to put our next piece so that it will cover all of the sides of B3. So that one is a little tight that way, so I'm going to do it this way. And that way I can definitely see that this is way large enough on that side. You can fold it up a little bit and say, oh, yep, definitely there. You can fold it, you know, down a 1/4 inch and see, yep, it's definitely large enough on all sides. So I'm going to take this over to my machine, flip open my paper, be really careful. And again, we're going to stitch completely through that seam allowance and all the way on that black line the entire time through the end of the paper, okay? Then we're going to cut our threads, and now we can see stitched all the way over, right? And that's the stitching. And then now we can open it and see how nice and perfect it is. So we are going to trim away all this excess here. We don't need any of that. So you fold your paper back, grab your 1/4, and then you use your rotary cutter, oops, and then trim away the excess. And now you can open the paper, you open that, and now I'm going to press this, because if we don't press this and this gets folded ever so slightly, we're not going to have perfect points lining up. So we definitely want to press that. This is so fun. It's so perfect. You guys are going to love this. So this is our beginner block, and you guys will we'll do a little bit more complicated one later. But now I'm going to use my ruler here to trim up my block, because our bee block is done. This is a flying geese block. It's super fast and easy to use to do paper piecing for flying geese. Oh, I didn't trim that perfect. This rotary cutter has a little centerpiece that kind of gets stuck. So I should really grab my other rotary cutter. There. Okay, so that's the one side, and then I'm going to trim the other side. Again, I'm going to use the 1/4 inch line on my ruler and line it up with the 1/4 inch line on my paper, and I'm going to cut that so that then we have a very perfect flying geese block. Ta-da! Check that out. I'm definitely going to cut that again, because I think the rotary cutter is not, it's not working out great. I will grab my larger one for the next one. There we go. That's way better. Ta-da! Okay, look at how good this is turning out, so that we can have a beautiful star. So we are going to sew block C next.